I thought I'd get out today to shoot this video. We're still in a lockdown here in the UK and the weather's not been great, and it's just taking an opportunity whenever you can to step out and get a bit of sun, but it's still very cold. But I thought it makes a nice change of scenery from the living room and the sofa. But in this video I wanted to talk about what it's like to book your first therapy session, what your first session could be like, what to expect, how to go about it. I spent a year in therapy, which was incremental to my the development of my mental well-being and my personal development. It changed a lot of things for me, and ultimately I knew that one of the things I did need to do is speak to someone and really just get lots off my chest that I'd been thinking about. Someone I didn't know, someone who wasn't a friend or a family member, someone who was impartial, but also someone who could give me, professional advice on how to go about things. So the first thing you need to do is actually find a therapist, and finding a therapist I think is almost like speed dating initially, and it might take you a few sessions with a few different therapists before you find one that you click with and you feel very comfortable with. But initially you'll probably go online and do a Google search. There are apps available these days that connect you virtually with a therapist, and whilst we're in lockdowns and the pandemic, that could be really great, but I would advise that initially what you do is you find someone locally. And the reason being is that whilst we're in a lockdown and we're doing things virtually, it's great that you can speak to someone through video calls, but as soon as the lockdown's lifted and people go back to somewhat of a normal life, I think it's really beneficial to actually be able to meet someone face to face, like go to their place of work, their clinic, or wherever they hold their sessions, and actually be able to physically see the therapist and sit in front of them and talk to them. So I think the first thing I would suggest is do a Google search. Find people local to you, like maybe within like a half an hour journey. You might want to find someone who specializes in something that the kind of help you need. That could be trauma, or you want them to be, let's say, LGBTQ friendly. They might specialize in some sort of an abuse that you've experienced, whatever that might be. Sometimes it's better to see someone who is a specialist within that area, so that you're getting the best help, and that they're the best people to speak to. First thing you probably would do is go onto Google and do a search. But actually, before you even do that, my suggestion would be to speak to, if you're comfortable, speak to a friend or a family member that you're happy to talk to. And if you know that they've been for counselling, then ask them for a recommendation if you feel comfortable doing that, because there's no better than sort of seeing someone that has been tried and tested and has come recommended. The only issue there is that if your friend, for example, has been to see this therapist that they're recommending, at least in the last year, the therapist probably won't take you on as well, because it'd be like a conflict of interest. So just make sure that if you are asking a friend and they're recommending someone, that they haven't been to that person in a year or two. Other than that, there's nothing really to worry about if you do see the same person. So let's say you found a therapist or a couple therapists that you want to get in touch with. The best thing to do initially is to send them an email or contact them via their website. Most of the times these therapists don't actually answer their phones because they're in session seeing clients. So I would just suggest sending a very short email to say that you're interested in booking a therapy session. Could they get back in touch with you with some more information and their availability? Another point to mention here is, I think you need to understand what you're able to afford before you even start searching for therapists, because therapy ranges from, like in the UK, you could be seeing a therapist for £40, or you could be seeing a therapist for £500. It's just this huge broad scale of prices that they charge. The person I saw was charging £120 for 50 minutes. But actually, on the same day, I went for I saw two therapists. One was charging £110 and one was charging £40. So, it's a real, it's very, very vast in terms of the price range. And I would just really think about what it is that you can afford. This isn't necessarily going to be a short-term thing where it's just one session. This could be up to a year, a year of therapy, like one session every 2 weeks. So realistically, how much can you invest? And check if you've got insurance. Like, you might have health insurance through your company, or your own personal insurance. Generally, health insurance doesn't always cover mental well-being and therapy. So I would just check, like, speak to your HR, look at your policy, speak to your HR, check your own personal policy, or call your healthcare provider and find out if you're covered for sort of mental well-being therapy before you speak to the therapist, because or figure out how much you can afford, because you may well be covered, and if you're not, then you're in a position to figure out how much you can afford yourself. So I think that's really, that's super important to figure out what is it that you can afford. So when you are then contacting therapists, you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting their time contacting ones that are going to be way out of your budget. So as I was saying, like, therapy I found was like speed dating right at the beginning. I saw a couple therapists, and it really is, you need to know, you need to get in front of them or have at least one session with them to know if they're for you or not. You need to feel comfortable with who you're speaking to, because if you're going to be spending several hours with this person, you need to make sure that you're on the same wavelength. You feel like you have a connection to them, and they kind of you get a good vibe from them. And I think it's something you can gauge very quickly within the first session. It's also worth noting that therapists will have their own pricing rate, like price structure for clients. So their top price, for example, like the guy I saw, his fee was £120. But after the first session, I explained to him that actually I didn't explain to him. He very quickly realised that I probably wouldn't be able to afford several sessions at that price. So he asked me, he's like, are you going to be able to afford this? And I don't think, I want you to feel that you can't come to me. So, is there something that we can work out? And I think a lot of therapists are happy to work out a suitable price for you. Now, I wouldn't go and haggle with them. Like, I don't think it's something for you to determine, like, okay, well, I'm only going to pay X. I think it's about having a conversation with them and saying, look, I really enjoyed our first session and I feel really comfortable with you. Is there something we could do on the price? Just because at the moment it's slightly outside my my budget, but maybe in 3 months time I might be able to afford that your full fee. Is there something we can do? And I think 9 times out of 10 most therapists are happy to accommodate because they understand the value of their service. So let's say you've booked your very first session with, let's say, one of the therapists that you're looking to meet. If it's in person, I would highly suggest getting to your appointment at least 10 to 15 minutes early. You don't want to get there really flustered and panicked. You want to be in a calm state of mind when you get to them. The other thing to note is therapists work in 15-minute slots. So let's say your time slot is at 12 o'clock. Your session will go on till 12:50. And then they have 10 minutes to write up notes or take your payment or whatnot before their next client arrives. So you have to be there on the dot, or like I said, be there earlier. If you don't get there on time, then it will eat into your session. And as it is, it already always feels very short, and it is only 15 minutes. So make sure you're there on time, in a relaxed state of mind. You're feeling relaxed physically, and you're ready to knock on their door at the time of your appointment, so you get the full benefits of your session. If you are doing it virtually, which I'm sure if you're thinking about doing it at the moment, it will be virtual depending on where you are. I would say make sure that your whichever device you're using, there's you're not going to have any issues like internet connection. Make sure you find a quiet space where you're not going to be disturbed. If you're living with people or there's people in the house, just tell them that not to disturb you for an hour. If you don't want to tell them you've got a therapy session, just say, can I not be disturbed for an hour or so, and just find a quiet spot where you're not going to be disturbed. There's not going to be any issues. Make sure you've got your power supply, a glass of water, really simple obvious things here, but I think it's important that everything's really prepared, so you're not interrupted, or you're not flustered during your session, so you do get the most out of your session. So I guess like the next big thing is, you know, you're at your first session. What do you talk about? You know, I'm sure you've got, you know, a lot of ideas about some of the things you might say, or, you know, how you're going to get it all in within the first session. And the likelihood is when you do, you know, sit down with the therapist for the first time, you know, they're going to let you do the talking. You know, I mean, they don't know who you are. So you're sitting in front of them. They don't really know what to ask you initially. You know, so the thing is that, you know, they would likely let you do the talking first. You know, I think it could be really overwhelming, because, you know, you've got so much to say, you don't know where to start. You could, you know, have a number of things that you want to discuss, and it's really important, like I said, to maximize that first session. So what I would say is start with the thing that is troubling you the most. Now that could be your job, it could be financial situation, it could be your health, it could be just current, you know, what's going on in the world that's, you know, causing you anxiety. Whatever that one thing that is, you feel is the most sort of, that one thing that's causing you the most stress and anxiety at this moment in time is what I think is the best thing to start with. Because what will happen is you'll start with one topic, and let's say you sit down and you say, I'm really not enjoying my job, and that's causing me a lot of stress and, you know, upset. What will happen over time is that that one issue that, you know, you're trying to deal with leads back, like links to so many other things that we don't even realize, you know, going back years and years. And what will happen is, as you start talking about those things, you know, and the therapist probes you, you know, maybe with questions, it will all start coming out, and it starts to like piece together itself. So I wouldn't be too worried about like going, you know, trying to discuss too many things. Just really start with that one thing that's that's troubling you, or making you, you know, which took you to therapy in the first place, and start with that one subject, and just, you know, let it flow, let it see where it goes. And, you know, they're the experts, they know how to, you know, lead you to the next thing and get the, you know, the most, you know, get the information from you that they can use to help you. So I would just say, think about what one thing that you want to discuss or you want to talk about, and let the rest just flow, and, you know, it will all fall into place. I think after your first session, you'll know if they're the right person for you. And one thing to look at is, you know, how are they reacting to your, you know, when you talk? Like, are they asking you questions that are getting you to think? You know, do you feel that they have the skills to help you process some of the things that you're dealing with? You know, I went to two therapists on the same day, and I had I said the same things to both of them, and straight away I knew which one was the one for me. And you just get the sense that this person is really going to, you know, get the most out of you and get the best out of you, and they're really skilled. And not to say the other one wasn't skilled, but they're skilled to be able to extract that information from you, and you just work better with them. So, you know, I think you'll know if that person is right for you. And, you know, you also want someone who's going to ask you difficult questions or challenge you at certain times, you know, during your therapy. You know, as much as we want someone to listen to us, you also don't want just someone, you know, to sit back and sort of say yes to everything. So I guess the final thing is, you know, I touched upon, you know, costs and things like that, but just make sure you know how they accept payment as well. So if it is for your insurance, do you have to, you know, sort things out with your insurance provider before? Do they even accept, you know, the insurance company that you work with? Or do they expect a bank transfer or a check, or, you know, do they have a card machine at the end of the session? Or if you are doing it virtually, you know, how are you settling payment? But like, talking about money is always a bit awkward, so it's just best to get clarity before you attend your session on how, you know, you will be able to pay for your session. So I hope some of that's helped. I wanted to keep this video short and, you know, to the point. I know how daunting it can be initially, and, you know, sometimes you just don't know where to start. Unfortunately, you know, that industry is not, you know, backed with like hundreds of reviews for every therapist that you can, you know, read before you attend. So it's just one of these things that you have to like try a few people, see how you feel with them, and, you know, just it literally is like looking at their website, you know, seeing their profile and taking a punt. And seeing, you know, if you're a good fit. I know this process can be really daunting, but I would just say trust in the process. You know, commit to having 6 to 10 sessions if you can afford that. You know, see how you get on. Like, don't think that everything's going to be solved within one session, because it won't. You know, allow yourself that time, and you know, if it makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, you know, that's normal. You know, it's normal to feel, you know, for it to pop us out of our comfort zone, because sometimes, you know, we are reflecting on things that happened in the past that have deeply affected us, or, you know, changed, you know, the course of our lives. And, you know, this process is introspective, and, you know, it is for us to look within and, you know, figure out how we can move forward. So commit to you know, to a handful of sessions, trust the process, you know, have faith in your, you know, the therapist, and also enjoy it. You know, it's your time. That 15 minutes is your time, you know, so, you know, make the most of it. If you found this video helpful, guys, please subscribe, leave a comment, you know, if you're about to start therapy, or, you know, just like, yeah, it'd be nice to hear at what stage you're at, what you're about to do, you know, if you are about to have your first session, how you're feeling. Let's chat in the comments below. Yeah, I just wanted to keep this video quite short. I hope I have. You know, I have a habit of rambling on sometimes. Yeah, and I shall see you in the next video, guys. Have a good day and take care.